Alright guys, there we have it. Now, I pre-ordered this guy back when I was collecting
Steven,
X-Men pieces.
You will send this statue to me when you are done reviewing
in favor
it.
of the 1/10 scale Sentinel dioramas from Iron Studios.
Steven,
just because I didn't really need
you will send me this statue.
Sentinel dials.
Steven, can you hear me? Yes, Steven. Yes. Well, would you look at that? As the Extreme channel is pushing towards 50,000 subscribers, these are just a few of the statues we are giving away on the journey there. If you want to know how to win one, stay tuned for later in the video. Hey everybody, welcome to the Extreme channel where we are reviewing a giant Professor X statue. And this statue is so unique and has so many different things we're going to talk about, even though Professor X is kind of boring despite the fact he's an amazing mutant and one of the most powerful beings in the Marvel Universe. Now, XM Studios is who manufactured this, and they first teased it 3 or 4 years ago. I believe it was at Singapore Comic-Con. And when I saw it, I was like, yeah, I'm a big X-Men fan. That's kind of my endgame when it comes to collecting statues. Look behind me. So I will definitely get Professor X. However, the more I thought about it, I'm like, my God, he's boring. Not the character, but the statue, because how do you make somebody who uses the power of their mind exciting in a statue form? So I was like, nah, I'm out. Well, finally this piece was released and people started doing reviews. And I wanted to take one last look. So I actually watched Xmen's review of this piece right here. And it is this piece was on his table. And I did put it on mute so I don't get any of his thoughts. That's what would suck about being Professor X. You get the thoughts no matter what. But I just looked at the up-close pictures and I think XM Studios did a knockout job. So I actually bought this from Gem. How much did you pay, Mr. X? Lots of sexual favors. But anyway, today we're going to review this piece, and after I'm done reviewing, I'm actually going to go back and watch Xmen's review with the sound on. So let's dive into the Extreme review. If you don't know who Professor X is, he is the leader of the X-Men, which I'm a big fan of. Professor X, X-Men, Mr. X, Triple X. Anyway, as I said, he's one of the most powerful mutants in the Marvel Universe. His brain can essentially do anything. It can control people, it can kill people, it can read their minds, it can make them do things. As you see on the statue here, he actually has a device called Cerebro that amplifies his powers worldwide or even universe-wide sometimes. And as I said, I wasn't planning on getting him because it's kind of boring, and how's he going to look with all this X-Men stuff behind me that's in these huge battles and action dynamic pose? But we're going to find out. So I'm going to have to figure out if he's going to fit on the top or bottom shelf, because if you haven't paid attention lately, I am completely redoing everything. I'm selling half my collection. X-Men will be behind me. We're going to get rid of the aliens, pretty sure. This entire room will be X-Men. But you got to have Professor X with the key X-Men above. Now, while he's not fighting a Sentinel, maybe he's controlling the battle from elsewhere. And that's what we'll talk about here first in the concept. Now, before we dive into the concept of the piece, just so you know, XM Studios made 2 different versions of this. And we'll talk about that in design. But I think for the most part, the concept is pretty similar. Alright, so Charles, or Chuck as I call him, is sitting here in what we assume to be the mansion. So he's in the area that Cerebro is housed. You can tell by the bottom base here, you have a lot of that futuristic technology going on. And as you move up, he is in his hover chair. So this is very reminiscent of the comics or the cartoons. So later in the life, in the future, instead of having a wheelchair, he got all fancy. The wheelchair has the classic X on it. And as you move up, he has a few different pose options we'll talk more about in design, but you assume he's using his power. Again, it's very difficult to display Professor X. How are you going to make your power known to others? I mean, if he's controlling someone else's mind, you really can't see that. So what they've done, at least in this pose, is he has his classic fingers to his temple, he has his hand outreached, he has the Cerebro helmet on, and I think that's probably the best you can do with Professor X when it shows his powers. Well, personally, while I don't know how to improve that, I don't think the concept's perfect because it's still a little bit boring, but it's very good. It's above average. I give it a 4 out of 5 on the Extreme scale. Now with design, there's actually a lot to talk about. So the first thing we're going to talk about, though, is we're going to look at the unboxing and assembly of this piece. One box, and yes, it did have Xmen's address on it. Standard XM Studios lid that's almost impossible to get off with the regular white foam and black straps. Pardon the lighting, it was dark when I got home to unbox this. Here's the first layer, repackaged really well. Has the base, the arms, the console. And the second layer had the chair, body, heads, and another arm. And of course, with the classic XM Studios, a little plaque that they've been putting with their pieces. I know a lot of people love them. I'm not a fan, so I put them back in the box.
On Xmen.
Classic XM Studios form, they also gave 2 pieces of paper. One is where everything laid in the box. The other side is the directions. And they typically do an art print in the pose of the statue. Before we talk about the display options, I want to talk about the engineering of this piece. So first of all, they had to make the hover chair appear to be floating. What they did is they connected it at the back here. This entire part, as you saw in the assembly, is one piece. I think that's very clever because from the front or the sides, you really can't see that. However, XM Studios did include a clear cylinder on the bottom to help support the weight of this just in case. That was very smart, and I was kind of bummed when I heard that, even though it's a smart move, but you really can't see it, so I think that is fantastic. So props to them on the engineering of this statue. Now, it's a lot bigger than I thought it would be.
Hey, that's what she said.
So I don't know if the scale's right, but it's very difficult when you talk about a character sitting down. And let's be honest, in the past, XM Studios has not done the best with scaling on characters that are sitting down. But the deepest part is probably a little over 17 inches. Tallest part, just over 18 and a half maybe. For exact dimensions, check out XM Studios' website. And the widest part, the bottom of the base, is about 15 and a half inches. So, as I said, he's going to take up a lot more room than I thought he would, and it's going to be kind of difficult with the display, but I'll figure it out. Now let's look at all the different display options. First, it does have a light-up feature, not only here on the chair, here it is off, and then here it is turned on. And I don't know if you guys can tell, there's kind of a blue light below that also turns on as well, but it's hard to get a picture of that. But the console up here has a light-up feature as well. Here it is turned off, and then here it is turned on. His left arm can be resting on the armrest here, or it can be reaching out. His right arm can be on the armrest, or it can be to his temple. 2 portraits that are very similar, just the direction he's looking. First one, he is looking at the console, and the other one, he is looking forward. Now, technically, these poses could be interchangeable, but they're not meant to be. You're meant to have these 2 different display options as you see right here, where he's looking forward and his arms up, or he's looking to the console with his arms down. I did try it a little bit differently. If you have him looking at the console with his hand up to his temple, he's poking himself in the eye, which is kind of funny. Now, I said XM Studios did 2 different versions of this. They also did a classic wheelchair, and they have a switch-out option where he's holding Magneto's helmet. Now, with all this, one huge miss I believe they had in this. They should have had an unhelmeted version of Professor X. Or the helmet should have been removable. I don't think it is, yeah. Or is it? No, it's not. So I think that's a big miss in my opinion, although I would probably display it with this guy on. So as long as it stands up the test of time, and despite a few scratches that are already on the base, very happy with everything they did on the design, another 4 out of 5. Now the paint and sculpt is what really got me on this piece, those close-up pictures that Jem did, and now that I have him in person, there's some weird stuff on here, but I kind of like it. Let's look at that stuff in the video. So we're not going to look at the switch outs because while they are a little bit different, they have essentially the same paint and sculpt. But we'll start at the bottom here, the base. There's a lot of dirt on here, and obviously it's painted on dirt. I'm not sure the purpose of this. I think this is a little bit of miss, especially the brown specks here. I imagine it's trying to show the age and wear of the metallic floor, but I always think of Cerebro as very clean. Granted, it does insinuate a bat a little bit, so I do understand what they're doing there. The black shading on the gray really contrasts the blue well, but just not a fan of that brown that they speckled in. I think that was a miss. The bottom of the floor with that honeycomb pattern looks cool. And this is stuff you're not really looking at. We're looking at the floor. There's that small cylinder to help support the weight as well with felt pads on each side. So the base itself, when you're looking at it close, it's not amazing. It's not bad. It's just kind of a little bit in between. A lot of that futuristic vibe to it, which obviously you have a hover chair, which we'll look at next. Now the weird thing on this is it looks like it's all dented up. Kind of strange. And I can't really tell if it is. I think it is. I think that's part of the sculpt. And again, I think it insinuates that Professor X does get into some battles from time to time. He doesn't get a new chair every single week. But I like the different contrast of the golds. They're not too shiny, but it doesn't have this puke yellow that is a potential liability. Painting yellow is always very difficult. Classic X on the side. I love the headlights, especially when they're lit up. They're off right now. And then just the black accents. And here, if you use the arms where he rests them on the armrest here, they did come with a felt pad you could put, but I left that in the box because I plan to go with this display. There are decals on the console here, but they look pretty good. I've seen bad decals. These are definitely not bad at all. One almost looks like a world map. Looks like he's tracking Magneto over there. But really well done, all of that. I would have chosen, if I had the choice, that the hover chair was a little more brand new. Where they knocked it out of the park was with Charles Xavier, though. So the suit, great linear texture coming down. I like the folds in it. Everything from the tiny detail on the buttons that have X's on them, the X on the belt, still some foam, our Gem's DNA on there. There is a few areas where the white paint isn't the cleanest. It's around the buttons here and the tie. Just kind of a factory paint issue. That's really the biggest issue besides what we talked about down here. But I love the way the suit looks. Where the arms switch off or where the natural seams are, so that's smart. He has a little handkerchief on his pocket. So much detail in this, and I think that's what really brings this statue to life. And then even when you move to his hands, a little more veiny as you would definitely see in an older person. And that, no, that's not a "that's what she said" joke. But I think they did a great job with the color. Hands look like real hands. Well manicured, which I would hope so, because you got to assume he's a billionaire. They never really talk about that, like Iron Man. Cerebro helmet is nice and shiny, though, and that's where I find it kind of that it's off compared to the grunge dirt of the rest. But it still looks really good. And these wires back here are pliable, so you can move them around. And then let's get in on the portrait. I think they did a really good job. Really good paint. Look around the eyes, the eyebrows. The sculpt looks fantastic. It's almost like a mix of some comic, some of the 90s cartoons, a little bit of Patrick Stewart in there, not much. But I love the coloring on this. I love his expression. He's focused. So really, pretty nice job with the paint and sculpt. A few things I would have done differently, but I'm a fan. All right, so paint. Really clean. I think XM Studios does an awesome job. There's a few areas that we talked about, especially like on his suit right here that's kind of iffy, but I'll still give it a 4 out of 5, especially for factory paint. Really well done. Sculpt, other than those dents that are appearing in the wheelchair, and I understand why they're there, unless it's just damage from the shipping, so maybe someone can comment below if it's supposed to be there. I understand why they did that, but it's still a 4 out of 5 because I think Xavier, his suit, looks fantastic. And I'm really impressed with this piece overall. You can kind of see it's going down this trend 4-4-4-4. Nonetheless, I'm really impressed with this piece overall. All right, so let's talk about value with this piece. First of all, to my knowledge, this is the first 1/4 scale Professor X statue. I used to own the Iron Studios 1/10 scale. You can actually check out right here. Now, they made 2 different versions. They were priced differently and had different edition sizes. So the edition size for this one was $499. They made 499 of these, and it retailed right around $960 US plus a couple $100 for shipping. The other one, they made $399, and it was about $100 cheaper. So because they did such an excellent job on him, I think the value is really good. I think he's still in stock right now, but no one else has really announced a Professor X coming out. And again, I don't really know how you can improve this other than some slight tweaks. I think the value is a 4 out of 5. I think over time, this will definitely hold its value because X-Men statues are such a big market for collectors. Now, does this have the X factor? Is this a 5 out of 5 statue? That has nothing to do with the other scores. It's just kind of my opinion on it. When I look at it, I am really, really impressed with him. However, he's still Professor X, so he's still kind of boring in a statue pose. But I will easily give this a 4 out of 5. I am so impressed with it. I think XM Studios did an awesome job. I encourage you to go pick one up because I think they will sell out sooner or later, and something like this will not come along for a long time. Now, favorite part of my video, I'm going to read the comments. Throw it out in the comments below. Would you sacrifice your lower appendages to have Professor X's power? And when I say lower appendages, I mean everything below the waist. Would you sacrifice that to have his mind telepathy power? And I ask you to comment that below because of this. We will be giving all of these statues away, plus additional ones at every 5,000 subscriber milestone. To win one of these statues, all you have to do is make sure you've liked this video, you've subscribed to the channel, you've hit that bell notification, and then just drop a comment below. Every 5,000 subscriber milestone, we are going to do a random drawing and pick a random comment and give one of these statues away, plus some additional ones I'm not showing right now. The more videos you comment on, the higher your chances are to win. So thanks guys for tuning in. Thanks Jim for an awesome transaction as always. Again, love to have your DNA in my house. So make sure to tune in for future videos, hitting that picture of me, and check out some of these other videos in time. And if you could do me one last favor, hit that like button on your way out. It really helps the channel. Thanks so much, guys. Take care.